The question is from Raj Sood, and the question is, when will the government and the Labour Party listen to its 70 million citizens? Can the traditional parties not understand that we're simply fed up with foreign aid policy and the cuts that affect us here? When will you hear us? After the next coalition of UKIP and the Greens?
I think I certainly sense on the doorstep when I'm out campaigning that people are fed up with traditional parties. Yes, I think people see them as being all the same, and I think in many parts that is very much true. Fewer and fewer members of Parliament now have had real jobs. Many have been researchers for members of Parliament before becoming MPs themselves. They often go into politics straight out of school. And I think people in UKIP buck the trend. The people that I meet in UKIP who are standing for Parliament are very much like me. They're people that went into politics later in life, that had had a huge amount of life experience under their belt, both in terms of education, in terms of actually being in a workplace. I've run my own businesses. I've helped set up several other businesses. I've set up a charity. And I think what the people of Britain want is some common sense. They get fed up with spin. Get fed up with political infighting, the Punch and Judy politics, and I think we are offering the public something very different, and I think that's why they're voting for us.
I just thought it's ironic that someone accuses other politicians of playing Punch and Judy politics. I mean, the sense of irony obviously lost in you, but there we go. I do think if we're going to talk about party politics, I'd hope we wouldn't. Actually, I'd hope we'd talk a little bit more tonight about international aid, but if we're going to talk about party politics, I must say I find UKIP to be a populist mob, really, all the time. They come up, they have very easy answers to very complicated, intractable problems. And I think people should be wary of that and look very carefully at the fine print, if there is any, and think very carefully about what is in their own long-term best interests. So I think, it's lovely that Nigel Farage can come out and say come up with a few bon mots and have a few pints and the rest of it. But, this is more serious than that, frankly.
Thank you, Graham.
The question that was just asked actually said the population of this country is 70 million, it's actually 64, but that's neither here nor there. But the question wasn't just about whether people are fed up with traditional political parties, and there's no doubt that the evidence is that the parties that were traditional parties are getting a smaller percentage of the vote. But the question was that they are fed up with it and fed up with the foreign aid policies of those parties. Now, I don't believe that if you were to have a referendum on foreign aid, international development budget in this country, that you would have a majority of people in this country who would want to stop aid going to some of the poorest places of the world, which we've discussed tonight. I really believe that the 70 million people, or 64 million, or however many vote, the vast majority of those are decent, sensible people who would understand the rationale for having a budget to help the countries in the world, whether it's with water aid or countries where people are starving. And I think there would be a wide swathe body of support amongst the four of the political parties here, the Labour Party, the Conservative Party, Liberal Democrats, the Green Party, and other parties. I'm afraid it's only UKIP at the moment that is saying they want to cut the international development budget, and I think if there were a referendum on that, I think the vast majority of people in this country would support, not without reforms, but would support the principle of continuing it.
Interest repayments that we are having to make as a result of our debt, which of course is generated because we have a deficit, the amount that we spend on interest is greater than the total that is spent on law and order, Ministry of Justice and transport put together, for instance. So if we don't deal with those economic problems, then actually all we end up doing is paying interest on the debt that we're incurring. So good luck to UKIP if they think by putting forward two policies, one's come out of the EU and two to stop immigration, if they think that is the solution to the deficit, well, they can say that if they want, but let's make sure that the facts that they are deploying are correct. The great thing about technology is that you can instantly check some of the things that were said. So this figure of 55 million that Suzanne talks about, well actually, if we want to be accurate, it's 33 million, so that's inflated by 80%. The figure that she referred to in terms of how much on each energy bill do the environmental measures cost us, which is incidentally a figure that was provided by an energy company. She said £93. I think the IPPR, which I accept is a left-wing think tank and therefore may not be entirely independent, suggests actually the cost is £15. So it's important that when we have these arguments, that actually we do it on the basis of fact rather than fantasy, because otherwise there's no point in having the discussion.
Well, my figures came from Ed Davey, actually. Yep.
Very much indeed. And the final word from Sasha.
Thank you. So if foreign aid and international aid matters to you, obviously there's certain sections of the room it doesn't, but if it does, you should maybe go back to 2010, just before the election, when all the manifestos were out. The World Development Movement analysed the policies of all the parties, and they marked them out of 10. So the Green Party was scored top, 8 out of 10. Lib Dems, 6 out of 10, Labour 5 out of 10, and the Conservatives 3 out of 10. So if it matters to you about international aid, foreign aid, and supporting poorer countries, then the Green Party is the party for you. Now, I do sense as well that people are fed up with politics and political parties. I have to confess, I don't really consider myself a politician as such. I feel I'm more of a campaigner. One of the things I'm doing is actually, as was mentioned at the start, I'm taking Sutton Council to court about building an incinerator just about 3.5 miles away from here. At quite great risk to myself, actually. At one point, there was a risk I could possibly lose my house, about the monies that I'd have to find to be able to tackle, actually, not just Sutton Council, Croydon Council, Suzanne's Council, Merton, and also Kingston Council, and also a FTSE 250 company called Viridor. So therefore, if you're looking for somebody who cares about the community they live in, I do live in this community in Croydon North, in Thornton Heath area, in Selhurst, then you should maybe look for a candidate that's going to represent you from the heart and through principle. Now, one of the strangest things that's happening actually at the moment is just last night, about 11 o'clock on my phone, I looked at a Twitter account, and actually last night, 1,900 new members just joined the Green Party. 1,900. And we've just, I believe, just overtaken UKIP in their membership nationally now, and with a fraction of the publicity that UKIP are having. Now, what is happening is that people are actually looking deeply at this, especially younger people, because they maybe actually haven't grasped onto a political party and haven't grasped onto a brand, and is actually looking for answers. And actually, amongst 18 to 24-year-olds now, the Green Party is tied with the Conservatives in second place on 22%. Now, if you go to a website called Vote for Policies, where people go in and choose any of the subjects on any of the issues, could be education, health, the environment, or policing, or what have you, you get some questions, and you put in your answers that you like, or you see the answers ahead of you, if you like, and you don't get to see which party is actually putting that for you. The Vote for Policies website is encouraging people to look at policies and not personalities. Now, if you go to that website, Vote for Policies website, the Croydon North constituency, which is a very strong, safe Labour seat, the winning party at the moment is the Green Party. Does that surprise anybody? Well, if you actually look at the policies carefully that you think you believe in, those other parties that you think are representing you don't actually do that. It's the Green Party that's representing your views.
Well, I'm afraid we've run out of time. We could spend another 2 hours quite easily, but sadly time won't permit it. I'd like to ask the audience their views. There's been a great deal of time spent about overseas aid. I'd like you to raise your hand if you feel that we should continue with the same level of overseas aid. Please raise your hand if you think we should. Oh, that's good. It's about 60–70%. Thank you very much indeed for attending. Thank you, panelists, for your excellent answers. And thank you very much for your questions. Good night.